Hi, it's Susan. Thank you so much for joining me again here at the Maven's Private Diaries. Today I'm speaking with my favourite author, Joan Price. Joan is a senior sexuality advocate, and she's part of the reason why I decided to create my business, The Spicy Boudoir. She's published a series of books which I absolutely love. There's Naked at Our Age, The Ultimate Guide to Sex After 50, Better Than I Expected, and her recent works, Sex After Grief, which is about navigating a sexuality after losing your beloved, which is very much a personal journey that Joan has had to experience. I just want to say, for anyone who's listening, if you have experienced loss and grief of someone that you've loved and you're contemplating on whether or not you'll ever find love again or will you ever be intimate again with another person, please sit back and listen to Joan. Her words are so kind and her advice is true to the heart. My other thought is, if you have feelings of sadness, let yourself experience those feelings. But if you find it too hard to break away, please get help. Talk to a friend, talk to your doctor, find a counsellor. But it's important that you take action if you're not able to release yourself from those feelings of grief. I have a theory that grief is like a fine bottle of wine. It matures and changes over time. When you take a glass full, grief is a glass of memories and love, and it's something to be savoured and enjoyed deeply to the heart. But if you can't put the cork back in the bottle and put it back on the shelf, then that's when it's time to ask for help. So let's listen to Joan. Thank you so much for joining me today. I just want to say congratulations on your new book, Sex After Grief.
Thank you, Susan, and it's so good to be here with you.
Oh, it's good. I wanted to just explain to our listeners why I've asked to speak to you. And here in Australia, on the 8th of August is our Dying to Know Day, where we ignite conversations around death and dying and grief. And I think the timing of your new book is sensational. And I can't wait to introduce that to my customer base.
Thank you.
I wanted to put something out there first. The title is Sex After Grief, but I'd like our listeners to understand that sex is not just penis in vagina motion, and I know you agree with that too. So
absolutely,
what definition of sex do you have, Joan?
I use sex is anything that brings you sexual arousal, sensation, or pleasure.
Nice.
So there's no goal in what you have to do in order to get there. It's whatever kind of stimulation you enjoy at that moment. And it doesn't have to have, in fact, shouldn't have a goal. Because if we take away the goals and we just concentrate on the pleasure and the sensation, we don't have to have performance anxiety. We don't have to have, but this doesn't work and that doesn't work and you can't stay hard and and my vagina hurts we don't have to have any of that. We can just go, okay, does this feel good? Yeah, okay, let's do that. If not, what would feel better? The conversation is sexy too.
Communication is the key to all good times. So what was your inspiration for the book, just for our listeners who aren't aware of what your story is?
I've been writing about older age sexuality for 14 years. And it started when I fell in love when I was 57 with a man who was 64. And we had the most dynamic love affair, sexy, hot, spicy, but also we were the loves of each other's lives.
Mm-hmm.
And at age 61, I started writing about senior sex. I lost Robert after exactly 7 years together. I lost him to cancer. At that point, my second senior sex book was in progress. I went on to do another one, a third one, and then this one, Sex After Grief, is the book that I wish I had been able to read when I was the most profoundly in grief, when I was struggling to try to figure out who am I now as a sexual being when the person I want to make love with is dead. And there was a part of me that was just screaming, just don't be dead anymore. And I didn't have that power. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm making you cry.
Well, I just relate very deeply to your story when you find that love of your life.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, don't apologize for that. I mean, that's what this is all about, is the depth of our emotions. And how do we then go on when that person that, I mean, we know nothing is forever. Maybe young people think things can be, but at our age, we know we're on borrowed time, right? We all are, whether we have a cancer diagnosis or not. We're, taking that slow march towards.
Exactly.
And
sorry.
So but we also can be sexual beings lifelong. We are sexual beings lifelong. So what does that mean? How do we get back to that? How do we know when? And how do we know what form it will take? There's so much. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, just I just get so many questions that pop up, and then you lead on to something new, and then I have another question. My background is working in, I guess, the sex industry, having a sex store, and I focus on people over 50 and people living with a disability. I sometimes get a lot of pushback or judgment. Do you experience the same, particularly around this topic,
yes.
Jo?
Well, I've named the pushback. I call it the Ick Factor.
Yes.
And this is our society. I certainly in the United States, although we're supposed to be so sexually open, the idea of old wrinkly people having sexual pleasure and desiring each other and having hot times together. I mean, there are so many people in our society that go, ew, no, ew, la, 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 la. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to see it. They don't want to know it.
Yeah.
And I say, well, that's just too bad, because we're not going to be invisible anymore.
No, that's right. And can we segue into your other project?
Speaking of not being invisible,
Jessica Drake, we might as well. We're there.
Absolutely.
Because I'm excited about this as well.
Jessica Drake, in case some of your people don't know, is an adult star, a porn star. She is also a very marvelous sex educator. She's an incredible person, very, very smart. And she has an instructional series that she does for Wicked Pictures called Jessica Drake's Wicked Guide to, and then something about sex, whether it's Wicked Guide to Cunnilingus or Wicked Guide to BDSM or Wicked Guide to threesomes. She has all sorts of different topics. And she came to me about 2 years ago and said, Joan, and I said, Jessica, Joan, you know my wicked guides? Oh, yes. We don't have, and we said it together, Wicked Guide to Senior Sex. And she said, I would only do it with you. So that's the long introduction to say that she and I got together, planned this project. I wrote the script. It is educational. It's instructional. It's the kinds of things I write about, but I'm on camera, fully dressed, talking about them. Meanwhile, there are two different couples, sexy seniors, who are not fully dressed and are demonstrating the things I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
it is an explicit video and it is instructional. And it's exciting. It is so
Mm.
exciting that this exists.
I like the
Uh,
fact that it's ethically made and that it's
yeah.
educational.
Oh, yes.
You know, it's not that gran I hate the term granny porn. I hate
I do
it.
too. I do too. Whether or not we have grandchildren has nothing to do with our sex lives.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. So when's that due to come out? Is that also in August?
It's also in August. Yes, it's
Okay.
being edited right now. It's done, but it's being edited, and I haven't yet seen the finished product. I
Uh-huh.
can't wait.
Okay.
But the filming went really well. And talk about ethically. I mean, it was just beautiful
Mm.
how Jessica and the entire crew were so respectful to
Mm.
these two couples that were making love on camera for the first time.
Mm.
These were not professionals.
Mm-hmm.
These
Mm.
were one couple had been together for decades.
Mm-hmm.
And they've known each other for 50 years. They weren't together for all that time,
Right.
but they have been together, and they applied to do this film as a couple. The other two people never met until the day of the filming.
Oh, really?
This was by design. We also wanted to show when you're with a new person, how
Mm.
do you negotiate what's going to happen? How
Mm.
do you discover each other gradually instead of going, okay, here's what we're going to do? No, what do you like? Do you like this? Do you like it when I do this? Oh, I think you like this. So it was very exciting. And the whole crew, including Jessica, we would hold our breaths when things started happening.
Mm.
Go, oh
Mm.
my gosh. There was such, for the one couple, such tenderness, for the other couple, such spicy discovery.
Mm.
And it was always, do you feel comfortable with this? Would you feel comfortable with that? Is it, and also the people felt free to say, I can't do this for very long because it hurts my knees. That happened once.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. We stop whenever you want. Uh, I'm going to go on way too long about this film, but it
Yeah.
will be Jessica Drake's Wicked Guide to Senior Sex, Guide to Wicked Sex, Senior Sex. And everyone can find out everything about it from my
Good.
website, joanprice.com. All the information is going to be there.
Excellent. Great. I'll put a link to in my when I wrap it up on and post it
Thank you.
online. So just going back to the book, Sex
Yes.
After Grief, what would be your key takeaway that you'd want people to take away? Like I've gone through the chapters and I can see each chapter you're inviting the reader. What's your takeaway? And it's so beautifully structured.
Thank you.
The things that you put in there, and I've already chatted to you before about how my eyes saw the older Volvo owners realizing then it was the vulva. So, and when you mentioned about the gateway drug, I would really like if you could elaborate what you mean by the gateway drug and how it can help people, because I think you've coined something new there, Joan.
I may have. Well, when our bodies are telling us that we do want to be sexually, we want to express ourselves sexually, that doesn't mean we're ready for partnered sex. It may mean we're just ready to reconnect with our own bodies, start self-pleasuring ourselves, find out what sex toys will maybe ease this along,
Mm.
and make just our own pleasure our goal. And the gateway drug to getting sexual with another partner at some point, maybe tomorrow, maybe not for 5 years, it is to learn how to pleasure ourselves again, and
Exactly.
to acknowledge that that's all right. It is all right that we can feel pleasure, because there's always not always, often, some degree of survivor guilt. How is it I'm still alive when my lover is not, and should I feel guilty about even thinking about sex now?
Mm.
It's There's so many things that go into this.
Mm.
That's why the book was important to me to write. It isn't just a physical thing. No, it isn't just how do you have orgasms after you lost someone. No, it's more how do you reconnect with your body? How do you know when it's time to invite someone else into your life or into your body? And then how do you do that in stages? So it's not all or nothing. It is, maybe we could just kiss for a while. Let's agree that'll be okay if that's as far as it goes today. Negotiating just how to make small steps to make sure we feel okay about it.
I love kissing.
Yeah.
I think it's the most sexiest thing that you can do, particularly if you start very, very slowly and build into it. My partner and I, we make out on the couch sometimes and we pretend we're 14.
Oh,
So what
I
time's your
like
mum
it.
coming home?
Oh, I like that.
So I'm just looking at my notes here. So to me, the sense I was getting from reading your book was that each person is very individual. Don't measure and don't compare your grief to somebody else's grief. And if you get people pressuring you to get back on the horse or no, it's too soon, just let it roll off your back.
Yeah.
Is that also a message that you felt that you wanted to give to your readers?
Well, it's very important because we don't all grieve at the same pace. I'm not going to say recover because maybe we never recover.
That's right.
But we expand so that we may still have that grief within us, but we can also have more. We can also invite more into our lives. And one thing I did with this book that was very important to me, I had my own grief journey I wanted to share, but I'm just one person, and I'm not the most important person. I'm just one person. There are so many different ways that people come back to sex or feel sexual or don't. And maybe they feel sexual right away. Maybe they don't for years or anything in between. And maybe they act on it right away. Maybe they don't for years or anything in between. So I also invited people who subscribe to my newsletter who have been through this to send me their experiences with grieving and sex. And oh, Susan, the things people sent me, beautiful stories, beautiful raw emotions, sometimes funny, sometimes despairing, but sometimes I went through this for years and now I'm in another relationship and it's not the same, but it's really good. And I didn't think this could happen. I get that too. So it's important to me to include lots of people's experiences to give the idea that whatever your timeline is, that's fine. However you kind of sexual relationship you want, that's fine. Whatever you don't want, that's fine.
There's lots of lovely vignettes in there of stories, and there was one a woman and a man, obviously, or could have been same sex, where she spoke to him about, look, it's in the chapter where you cover about STIs and safe sex, and the woman discussed, I want to use a condom, and he lost his erection. Yeah. And so I don't know if this was one of your personal stories.
This was
Jane.
one of mine.
It was, yes. So I just thought how that was navigated was beautiful. And that's where we fall into the trap of thinking it has to be penis and vagina to be pleasurable.
Or that there has to be an erection for it to be pleasurable.
Well, that's right. You know, my libido has really decreased since I hit menopause, and I can still have great sex.
Yeah.
I don't have arousal sometimes, and I don't have orgasm, but I still have great sex because I'm enjoying pleasuring my partner, and I still enjoy his touch as well. So I can't help but think, you know, when I read your book, how it's going to support me one day, and how I can perhaps help others as well. And I think it's a very important topic that needs to be included in the support material around grief. And
It isn't, though.
It's not enough, exactly.
I wish. Yeah. And maybe, we're making inroads. We're not being quiet. So eventually, maybe this will be seen as normal. As I've been trying for 15 years to normalize the idea of older age sexuality. And now there are a whole lot of people doing that. When I started, I thought, I'm the voice in the wilderness. Nobody's talking about this. And people thought I was really weird, and maybe I am, but I don't mind that.
No. You're the reason I'm in my business. I found you when I was doing my research, and you gave me the courage to continue.
Oh, Susan.
So, you're like the person leading ahead with the machete, cutting through the jungle and clearing a path. So I think, Joan, your work really has started to gain traction, and you've been the match that's lit the fire in a lot of people. So congratulations again on your book. I know your time is short and it's evening over there in the US.
So I'm yours for as long as you want me.
I could talk to you forever. I get that sense. But
well, let's get me to Australia and we'll do that.
Yes, we're talking about that next year. I'm very keen for you to come out here and deliver your, what was it, the Great Sex Without Penetration workshop.
I'd love to do that.
I think that's the key. And I can't wait to show you Queensland. So.
I'd love that.
All right. Well, I'll talk to you again. And thank you again very much for joining me with the Maven's Private Diaries and the Spicy Boudoir. Isn't Joan Price absolutely fabulous? There's a message in there that really struck a chord with me. And that was when Joan talked about approaching a new relationship in stages. Not to have that an all or nothing approach. That to me makes a lot of sense. If you get to know someone, at your own pace and get comfortable with each other first, you don't need to dive into the deep end. Now, if you really enjoyed this interview with Joan Price, stick around and keep listening to the Maven's Private Diaries. I was very lucky to continue chatting with Joan for about an hour, and I've got more gold coming this way in the near future. Thank you for listening to the Maven's Private Diaries. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and took away some wisdom, chuckles, or inspiration. Let me know your thoughts, either positive or constructive. You could leave me a review on your listening app. So this podcast is the property of Susan Jarvis, me, the Maven. For inquiries, please visit www.thespicyboudoir.com.